Today's show is brought to you by film students Connor and Annalise Taz. Hello and welcome to Film Pro Productivity, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is the New Year special. It's episode 51 and it's 5 of the best and looking forward. Well, I can hardly believe that I'm able to finally sit down at last and record this show because it's been such a long, tough journey through this season. And today's show not only marks the end of season 3, but it also celebrates the first 50 episodes and a new year with new hopes and possibilities. Albert Einstein said, "Learn from yesterday, live for today." And so I will be looking back in this episode and choosing 5 of my favourite pieces of advice from the first 50 shows to bring to you today, and then looking forward to another year and another decade, which, if we seize control of it and utilise the skills and advice that I offer in this podcast, will be a very successful and fulfilling one for all of us. Learning the lessons of the past allows you to walk boldly in the light without running the risk of stumbling in the darkness. This is the way it's supposed to work. M. Russell Ballard, unquote. Despite some ups and downs for me, this year has overall been a very positive one. I should probably cover why, though, that I said I was going to release 18 10-minute episodes this season, and then promptly went ahead with 18 shows which were about 20 minutes or considerably longer. Well, I have to admit that I got myself into a lot of trouble with that one, and the truth is that the topics I have been tackling just didn't fit into a 10-minute format. I quickly realised, and this is a topic for a future show perhaps, that I had underestimated my timings and underestimated the amount of work that I was taking on. But as I am a man of my word, who had promised 18 episodes this season, I soldiered on. Season 3 contains just over 8 hours of original content, where I had originally been aiming for just 3. It's put a real strain on my time and resources, but in the end, I feel that it's all been worthwhile. With that said, though, lessons have been learned. And the other thing that went well off target this year reasonably quickly were my own plans, because I'd used Jinny Ditzler's Best Year Yet book, which I talk about in the last New Year special, but I'd used that book to strategise my year ahead and set out at the start of the year with a 10-point plan to achieve things. By the time, however, that I got to my third deadline, my third point on that list, I had been derailed though. And I talk about that in my Best Laid Plans episode, so I won't go into it in detail here. Jinny says that the principal value of our mistakes and failures is our ability to learn from them though. And this is backed up by so many others. I've actually given a few quotes already in this episode which say more or less the same thing, but Napoleon Hill talks about it in the Law of Success mini-series that I did, when he says that we should reframe failures in our minds just as temporary setbacks. So I have done that, and I will approach a new Best Year Yet strategy with that in mind. The title of the book, Your Best Year Yet, is actually very clever on this, though, as using Jinny's system, every year can be better than the one before. I can now move past and learn from my mistakes and make a new plan to achieve things in the year ahead. 2020 will be my best year yet. And when 2021 comes around, I'll give it the same focused effort as the one before. My objectives will change as I move forward, but every new year that arrives will be my best, and I will continue to adapt and develop to achieve great things. I fully expect to be making more mistakes, but I will build on them and likely report on them here as they occur. By the way, this is, of course, exactly the time of year that you should check out that previous New Year's special. So go back to episode 16 and listen to your best year yet to find out more about it. And there are other factors that have contributed to the overall success of 2019 for me, and I've had a few great wins along the way. Hitting 50 episodes was a tremendous landmark for this show, but I also have had great developments in my personal and my family life, and I've had great times as well with my dog Angus. I've also directed fights on 4 feature films, a few theatre productions too, which was great because when you get drawn into the world of film and television with the higher wages and stuff like that, these theatre productions can start to fall away as your availability becomes less and less. But I was able to work with Pitlochry Festival Theatre this year and on a commercial tour as well, and I really, really loved doing them. I also did a couple of short films, and I think I tried to count it up there, and it's very difficult for me to kind of really cover what I've done because I did a lot, but I think I also did 41 episodes on various high-level television shows. And despite a few hard knocks financially and spiritually this year that resulted in me giving up on making films, I have come out the other side with a year that I can fairly confidently call a success. All great achievements require time. Maya Angelou, unquote. Well, passing the 50 episode point certainly feels like a milestone and no mistake, and today I want to bring to you 5 of my, I'm calling them favourite tips for productivity from those 50 episodes. The reality is I've got many, many more favourites, and I've just had to kind of randomly choose 5, but I've put these ones, which I have taken a little bit of time over, but I've put them in a kind of rough order for the sake of an exciting, or at least informative, I hope, episode, which to my mind will be valuable to you. The best years of your life are the ones in which you decide your problems are your own. You don't blame them on your mother, the ecology, or the president. You realise that you control your own destiny. Albert Ellis, unquote. And first on my list is what I talk about in episode 1 of this podcast. And it's a switch in your head that needs to get flipped if you are to get yourself out of the mundane rut of directionless uncertainty that you find yourself in. What I am talking about here is developing a higher level of thinking, which some call intelligent thought, and getting yourself into a headspace where you can work on your life and career at the same time that you find yourself living and working in it. And I'll say that again for those of you that haven't heard me talking about this. Getting yourself into a headspace where you can work on your life and career at the same time that you find yourself living and working in it. This realization that we can directly assess and take control of our lives and careers instead of just floating along through life like a passenger was the kick-off point I had into this whole world of productivity. And if up until now you have just been following the random flow of your life and doing your best to make sense of it without actually realising that you may have to stop and step out of your own life and work, even just briefly on occasion to assess what you have been doing and how things are working out for you, then you are not getting the best out of life. Stopping every now and again and looking at your levels of success or failure, what you may have learned from those failures as well, and what might be the next steps to take on your journey through life is absolutely possible, but only if you flick that switch and decide to take back control. And if you're listening already to this podcast, and you have been for a while, you are already likely on this wavelength. But I invite you that haven't done so far to step up and join those of us who have engaged the process of high-level thinking in their lives and in our careers and take back control of your own. High-level thinking will help you to avoid the skirmishes, stop wasting your time and mental energy on the unimportant, and focus on the bigger picture and the bigger win. Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life. Emma Stone, unquote. And so the second on my list for today is an extension of what I was just talking about. It's a topic I've covered in a number of episodes, but most recently in episode 40, the Law of Success Part 1. And that's the lesson specifically relating to having a definite chief aim in life. I talk about this quite regularly, as in productivity terms, it's really very important. Now, if you're just starting out, or if you've maybe got a bit lost along the way, I fully understand that it might take you a bit of time to decide what exactly you want to do with your life. But you can still make plans for 5 years from now, 1 year from now, or even just to achieve something you want for yourself by the end of next week, or even by the end of today. If you know what you want out of life, then you'll know what to say no to, and what to prioritise in what lies ahead. With a sense of purpose comes focus and certainty. And when you combine this technique with the higher level thinking I was talking about a minute ago, it makes it possible that as your life proceeds and your priorities change, that you will intelligently choose to change your direction in life somewhere down the line too. And that's perfectly okay. But if you really do know what you want to achieve, then you can get to it far more easily and more directly without distractions, and without finding that you're actually working to achieve someone else's life dreams and goals instead of your own, which is a way that leads to misery. You really don't want to wake up 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 15 or 20 years from now and realise that you've actually spent a lifetime helping someone else to achieve their dreams at the cost of your own. Put simply, knowing what your dreams and goals and objectives are in life and having a definite chief aim will allow you to navigate directly towards it. And third on today's list is a really simple anti-procrastination rule that I use every day, and it's from episode 9, 4 Great Hacks to Avoid Procrastination, or might be to beat procrastination. I might be misquoting my own show there, but it is the one-touch rule that I am talking about, and the one-touch rule is simply that you must process and complete a task the first time that you touch it. I'll say that again. You must process and complete a task the first time that you touch it. It was formalised by productivity consultant Anne Gomez, who explains that it's a simple trick to help you batch your work into scheduled focus blocks. You won't open an email until you're ready to give it your full attention, and you'll decline to accept your co-worker's rough draft until later, when you know that you'll have time to sit down and actually work on it. I've got a difficulty on occasion with overwhelm, which was talked about in the November mailbag episode. Sometimes I just can't handle all of the communications and problems that come my way as they come in, so I have to prioritise what I choose to tackle. See episode 3, I think it is, for more information on prioritising. But once they are prioritised, I won't even look at or consider the non-pertinent stuff. Actually, sometimes I will if I'm not feeling overwhelmed, and they are very quick to deal with. And that is the 2-minute rule, which is also covered in episode 9. I'll let you look that one up yourself if you don't know what I'm talking about. The reason, though, that I don't open non-pertinent stuff is because I have systemised myself to use the one-touch rule. If I can't complete a communication, for example, in one sitting, or if I'm about to start a task that I know I cannot finish right there and then, I just won't start it. Sometimes, if it's urgent, maybe I will reschedule or reorder my day to ensure that I can finish things in one sitting. But what I won't do is start it and then leave it unfinished. It's possible that I could take a larger task and split it into 2 or 3 sections so that I can at least complete a defined bit of it. But generally speaking, I don't like to have what I call open doors in my life or my work. And those, what I refer to as open doors, are unfinished pieces of work or unfinished communications or personal matters that I will have to pick up the pieces of later on. It's more efficient to complete a task as well in one sitting, because trying to re-engage your mind at a later date in where your mind was where you started something is kind of a waste of time. You're better to get into the flow and understanding of what you're doing it, and if it's possible in a shorter space of time, complete it in a single sitting. If I don't, it just clogs up my brain and messes me up. So if you find that you've got a task to do that you know you can't complete in the time that you've got available, or that isn't urgent, then don't even go near it until you know that you'll have time to complete it, or until it's important to do so. And the one-touch rule works really, really well with small to mid-level tasks that can be completed basically within a day. But I want to kind of add a couple of caveats to that. Firstly, if you're dealing with big projects, the one-touch rule doesn't really work, but you can split, as I've said many times before, bigger projects into smaller and smaller pieces and make these projects a sum of their parts. And so the parts within a larger project can actually also be achieved using the one-touch rule. And the other caveat is that, and I learned this when I was fencing. I became a fencing instructor while I was training to be a fight director. And there is a lot to be said for deliberately choosing to take time away from it and splitting it. And that will allow you to consider what you've come up with before and revisit it with a fresh mind. And we refer to this as having a period of reflection between lessons. And when you're fencing, you're learning new skills, new ways to move your body. So that period of reflection allows your body to adapt and allows your mind to just get a better grasp of what exactly you've been taught and how it can be applied in a fencing match. And it's exactly the same when you're working on something creative. If you hit a wall, and you'll recognise this yourself, if you hit a wall, having a little bit of time away from it, even just a walk, never mind a week, will allow you to come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. And also in that time that you're away from it, even though you may not be consciously doing so, you're very possibly fixing some stuff that doesn't quite work. I can actually talk about it here with this show because I recorded this full show last night and I slept on it. And I'm up today and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm redoing some bits. I'm inserting this piece here, and I'm also going to change I changed my mind on my fifth favourite, in inverted commas, thing. So having a bit of time away can be a really, really great thing. But my point here in this one is about the one-touch rule. If you've got a task that is achievable within one sitting or is relatively small, make sure you don't start it until you know you've got the time to finish it. That is the one-touch rule, and it's awesome. Fourth now in my list of favourites is protecting your mental energy. And really I'm talking here about all of episode 18. It's something I first heard discussed by one of my very favourite productivity experts that I follow, someone called Isaiah Hankel. And in his awesome book, The Science of Intelligent Achievement, he says that mental energy is the world's hottest commodity. People are going to try and steal it, drain it, and suck it up every second that you're awake, yet few of us protect it. Few of us know how. Mental energy is what I was thinking about protecting with the one-touch rule when I talked about not opening too many doors. My brain simply can't adequately cover all of the bases if it is constantly getting pulled from pillar to post by too many worries, too many commitments, and too many open or unfinished tasks. When you're trying to remember dates and special occasions and loading all of the commitments of a busy modern life and work onto your brain, you will find that you very quickly begin to drop the ball. You must protect your mental energy at all costs, though, as you only have a finite amount of it to use each day. Our fatigue is often caused not by work, but by worry, frustration, and resentment. Dale Carnegie, unquote. And that fatigue that he's talking about is the waning of your day's supply of mental energy. I regularly utilise what I call brain dumps, and that's getting all of the stuff that's in your head out of it and onto a piece of paper or a whiteboard so that you can sort through it, basically. You can then eliminate the unimportant and the non-priority junk that's in there and focus on the important and the urgent stuff instead. You can also, of course, use calendars and scheduling software to remember dates, etc., and just take a bit of the burden of remembering all that stuff off of your mind. When you do this, you'll find yourself functioning more effectively and efficiently and with far less stress and anxiety. Protecting your mental energy is not only one of my favourite shows, but it's also one of my favourite topics when talking about productivity. So if you haven't yet had a listen to that one, then get in there. Accuracy is the twin brother to honesty and inaccuracy to dishonesty. Nathaniel Hawthorne, unquote. So we're now on to the final choice for today, my fifth favourite, for want of a better word, and that is going to be accurate thought. But I've flip-flopped over this and actually yesterday recorded a completely different topic, but I've finally settled on accurate thought, which was lesson 11 in my Law of Success mini-series that I talked about earlier, because time and again I see problems, really big problems in productivity terms, arise, and also great swathes of times wasted by what I'd refer to as woolly, unclear, lazy, or just mistaken thoughts. The lesson on accurate thought teaches us that we must separate facts from mere information. It goes on to say then that we must separate our facts into two different classes, and I was talking about this in another one of my points there, and those two classes are important and unimportant, which could also be referred to as the relevant and the irrelevant. Napoleon Hill explains that facts which will aid you to any extent whatsoever in the attainment of your definite chief aim are important and relevant. And that everything else, all that you can't use, is unimportant and irrelevant. I believe that developing a habit of accurate thought is absolutely essential if we are to be productive and efficient in our lives, and here is why. Peter Drucker says, "It is fundamentally the confusion between effectiveness and efficiency that stands between doing the right things and doing things right. There is surely nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency that which should not be done at all." Accuracy of thought will allow you to identify what is important and what is relevant and what is completely irrelevant, what is a distraction and what you should stay away from. And that's a quote I've used several times before, but it comes to mind very often for me because unless you can accurately assess what you're dealing with from moment to moment in your life and career and navigate past the distractions, lies and manipulations which life and the universe and other human beings throws at us, you will burn a huge amount of time and effort in doing the wrong things. In the lesson, Hill talks about the law of evidence, and the object of this law is to get at the facts. Any judge can proceed with justice to all concerned if they have the facts upon which to base their judgment, but they may play havoc with innocent people if they circumvent the law of evidence and reach a conclusion or judgment that is based upon hearsay information. This world that we live in, and especially data gleaned from the internet, is an absolute minefield of misinformation. I talked about this in quite considerable detail a couple episodes ago in the show Outrage Porn, so go back and listen to that if you've not heard it before, and this is the sort of thing that interests you. But this misinformation from the internet affects me in several ways. For example, if I use a quote and I have the time, I will now investigate whether it is correctly attributed or not. And I'd say, and I've learned this the hard way, that about 1 in every 20 or so quotes that I put up, either on social media to promote the show or I use within the show, is incorrectly attributed in my online reference materials. It really is, and I've been caught out a couple of times before I realised just how much of it was wrong, but I have, in fact, myself also put out a mistake. I put out a quote that I said was from, I don't know, Ernest Hemingway or something like that, and it turned out actually to be from Harry Potter. That was a mistake. But that mistake that I put out could, would, and probably has been read by someone else and passed forward as fact, where it was really just an error. And of course that might be regarded as a small thing, but it's a microcosm of a bigger issue there with the internet. But at the other end of the scale, we have, I think, a bigger problem, and I did talk about this in the Outrage episode, and that's what's known as sponsored content, when reviews specifically are the things that I notice are put forward as an independent view. But if you look closer, if you scratch the surface, you find that they are actually sponsored content, and therefore the reviewer has received either something monetary or a gift, which could be the product that they're reviewing, in order to get to buy, effectively, a good review. And I've burned my fingers a little bit on this. I've been researching an episode that's hopefully going to come out towards the end of January, which is the second mailbag show. And I was researching some software for that one, and I couldn't find an honest review of it, and eventually I downloaded it myself and realised that it was pretty garbage. But that was after finding probably 10 to 15 reviews that said it was absolutely amazing. It wasn't. It is amazing how many people there are who are honest when it is profitable to them, but find a myriad of facts to justify themselves in following a dishonest course when that course seems to be more profitable or more advantageous. Napoleon Hill, unquote. Paid sponsorship is making it near impossible to find balanced opinion out there. Reviews that are representing themselves at a glance as truth are very, very often, in fact, just commercial content that is designed to dupe us. And South Park Season 19 does a great skit on this, where they describe marketing in terms of Skynet in the Terminator universe, where the commercials adapt and become more intelligent in order to infiltrate our lives. Sorting the truth from the lies in today's world is increasingly difficult. And the trouble is that if you believe the hype and the misinformation which we are being manipulated to understand as truth, that you will find yourself wasting time and money and energy on stuff that later proves to be a waste of all that. You might also find too that you have unknowingly fallen into a marketing funnel and been deliberately led away from the truth and away from the information that you are seeking. Getting to the facts in today's society is just immensely difficult, but it is well worth the effort. There's another side to accuracy of thought, and that is being accurate and truthful to yourself. I see people faking their way through their lives, and I don't actually have a problem with the fake it till you make it strategy or technique if it works for you. But what I sometimes see is someone starting to believe the bullshit they have been inflicting on other people, and that is when this fake it till you make it strategy becomes a problem. And if you're going to move forward with that strategy and you lose your accuracy of thought and start to believe your own hype, then you are getting yourself into no end of trouble. I've seen this happen all over the film industry. I've seen actors telling people they are in a movie, for example, even going into IMDb and inserting their own name into a movie. And please bear in mind, folks, that IMDb is not a reliable source for information. Anyone who is signed up for IMDb can alter pretty much everything on IMDb. I'm sure there are some restrictions, but it is not factual information. My CV, which is on my website, is factual. That what I've actually done is on there. What I've actually done is not all on IMDb. About half of my credits are missing from that because I have to go in and put every single one on there, and it's a drag. But the other thing is, as I mentioned a second ago, anyone who's already got a credit can basically add themselves to any other film. So it is absolutely not a reliable source of information. And these actors that tell people they're in a movie really fall on their own sword when it is later on released. And then they are seen to be liars or fakes when they are clearly not in it at all. Now, there are obviously some people who will play a part in a film and get edited out of a film, but those people usually have a legitimacy to them that goes beyond just a credit floating in the ether. Don't believe everything you read on IMDb. I've also seen writers convincing themselves that they have relationships with high-flying Hollywood producers only for their work to never get made because they missed the real opportunities that were passing them by as they imagined themselves to be better than that. And I've seen filmmakers, very often, who will tell you that they have a definite financier for their film crumble under my questions about it when I discover that they don't have anything in writing and they have just convinced themselves that it is true in order maybe to just get a little bit of kickback, a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of well done. But the reality is that they are fooling themselves. They have lost their accuracy of thought. And the trouble really with all of this is that someone could go 2, 3, 4, 5 years believing their own hype. And I've seen people present themselves as doing well and spending months or weeks earning money just to spend it all in 1 or 2 weeks where they are wanting to be seen as successful. These are quite clever people. Don't get me wrong. The fake it till you make it strategy is one worth considering. However, that changes when they start to truly believe their own hype. Napoleon Hill helps us to get to the facts when we are faced by things like this by asking one simple question. How do you know this? When someone, even someone you know and trust, brings you information which you are uncertain of, or even that you might even be certain of, but it is so important not to mess up, you should ask them, how do you know this? Because sometimes you might be dealing with somebody that's believing their own hype. For example, I've wasted a lot of time working with filmmakers sometimes that tell me something is absolutely factual when the reality is they just want it to be. They're not bad people. They just have lost track of this accuracy of thought. So even when information comes to you through someone that you know and trust, you might want to consider asking, how do you know this? Under scrutiny, those who believe their own hype, but who have exaggerated their position, will, as I said before, fall very heavily on their own swords. And I understand that this could be quite difficult for you to do. It's a little bit embarrassing, but occasionally you do have to ask that awkward question in order that you do not get drawn into a false world of hope. I can't tell you how many times I've wasted time and energy on something that later proves to be someone else's fantasy. Even this year, I pushed for a hard guarantee on something that was supposed to shoot in March, a fighty kind of film thing that was going to be a precursor to a movie, and I'd heard it so many times, so I really, really pushed to find out if it was genuinely going to happen. I was given a hard guarantee that it was going to happen. And despite all of those assurances, it didn't happen because whoever it was, I won't name names obviously, but the person that was talking to me maybe wanted it to happen, maybe hoped it would happen, but had just bitten off far more than they could chew, and it didn't come to pass. If I had gone with both feet into that, I could have wasted 2, 3, 4 weeks working towards something that didn't come to be. Now, that question, this is where it comes to productivity. This is where accuracy of thought becomes a productivity technique. Because if I hadn't asked those questions, and if I hadn't said, come back to me at a later point when you are more ready, I could have spent those weeks working with this person towards something that didn't happen. And I recognised it because I've done that. I've lost those weeks time and time again in the past 24 years where I've been working as a fight director and as a filmmaker. Anyway, I've gone way off piece. Do you know how I do these things? But going back to my notes here, as an accurate thinker, it becomes your duty to avail yourself of the facts, even though you must go out of your way to get them and ask those difficult questions. If, however, you permit yourself to be swayed to and fro by all manner of information that comes your way, you will never become an accurate thinker, and you will be duped time and again by some seemingly credible people's woolly-brained fantasies or downright lies and manipulation tactics. Accuracy of thought combined too with high-level thinking allows you to intelligently assess virtually any situation that you'll find yourself in. If you don't think accurately, though, you will be constantly distracted and likely never attain your definite chief aim in life. So that's all 5 of my, for want of a better word, favourites from the first 50 shows. But if truth be told, I embrace far more than these in my day-to-day life. We stand now at the precipice of a new beginning. At least it always feels that way when a new year comes about, doesn't it? But our New Year's resolutions are fleeting and very, very quickly begin to slip away as life starts to disrupt them. If you truly want to achieve things in the year ahead, then you need to know where exactly you want to be in a year, and you need to plan for how to get there. Achieving your eventual definite chief aim in life will involve strategizing and working hard to make it all happen. Last year's New Year's special goes into great detail about this, so if you want to learn about Jinny Ditzler's system for achieving things in the year ahead and achieving your own best year yet, then please go back to episode 16 and have a listen. This season, I spent a lot of time creating a 6-part series called The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. You've got a couple of the lessons mentioned today already, and it's based on a book by Napoleon Hill. In that series, you will find a system so powerful that it just can't be understated. But it's not a short listen, though. It's a full 3 hours of content spread over 6 episodes that will involve you really engaging your mind in what it teaches. And actually, I'd say if you are going to go back and listen to it and take it seriously, you might want to take a break, just pause in between each of the 16 lessons as well, maybe even write some notes along the way. Your call to action, you see, is to go back and listen or re-listen to that series, which is covered in episodes 40 through 45. This will give you a very powerful start on the road to achieving success in whatever form that might take for you in the year ahead and in your life. And as you move forward into the next decade, I want you to remember the words of John Wooden. If we fail to adapt, we fail to move forward. And that also reminds me of the famous Albert Einstein quote about insanity, which he describes as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So look back at what mistakes you've made or what errors or bad choices you've made and try and move forward without repeating those mistakes. And remember too that you can rebrand effectively your mistakes or your failures as just temporary defeats. Learn from them and move forward with success. I wish you the very best for 2020, and I hope that this podcast will continue to aid you on your journey. Please take control of your own destiny and use that higher level of thinking which I have talked about. With that, you will be able to move forward with a certainty of purpose that will propel you towards your dreams and your goals. And remember too, a new year can start for you at any time of your choosing. You are in control. If you're listening to this show, for example, at another point in the year and decide that you need to make a change for the better and start again, whether it's January the 1st or July the 22nd, you can still do it. Now, I said a few weeks ago that this show will be back at the start of March, but I had miscalculated that one. That's one of my many errors, which I will reframe as temporary defeats. The show will actually be back at the end of March, which is roughly 3 months from today, which is just at the end of the new year. It's about 2 days before New Year. And it will come back with a new 12-part series, which will consist possibly of 6 interview shows. It's something I've never done before. 6 interview shows and 6 standard shows, although there may be a little bit of a risk to that. I might just roll it out with 4 interview shows or possibly 3 of the 12 just to see how it goes down. But I'm going to do an in-between episode. There's going to be a few in-between episodes on each month as well. I think January I'm trying to do one which is a second mailbag episode. February, probably, well, definitely, I think, an interview with Ian O'Neill from the How They Did It filmmaking podcast, who almost as a tester, just to see how it goes down and see how people feel about it. And one other thing which I might do in the new series as well is I'm slightly tempted to rebrand, just a little bit though, to add the word success to the title and call the show Film Pro Productivity and Success. I ran a little poll on Twitter just yesterday, and it seemed to be that was the one that people were going for. I'm not sure what's involved with adding a word to the title or a couple of words to the title. If I can do it, I probably will, because I think it's maybe slightly more accurate for what I'm putting forward here. The techniques that we use to make ourselves more productive do in the end lead to success. So I'm toying with that idea. If you've got a thought on it, fire in something on the social networking. But just one thing on social networking I should say, I may not have mentioned it already, is that I'm taking all of January off of the social networking. It's been it's taken a bit of a toll on my life and my career, etc., to commit as much time as I've committed to promoting the show and recording the show, as well as doing all the fights and things over the last few months. So I'm going to take a month off and do a little bit of training and a little bit of relaxing. In the meantime, I can highly recommend a few shows for you to check off during my off-season hiatus. If you're into filmmaking, then there's great interview-based shows like the Filmmakers Podcast, How They Did It Filmmaking that I mentioned a minute ago, Ian's show. The Real Filthy Podcast is another Glasgow-based show. And, of course, there's Indie Film Hustle, one of the bigger ones, possibly the biggest one, with Alex Ferrari. So if filmmaking is your thing, check out some of them. If you're interested in learning more about podcasting, though, and perhaps want to start your own show, then you can try a few of these. There's a Scotland-based one called Podcraft, which I listen to, in fact, in order to release my own show. Or there's a couple of US shows. There's the Audacity to Podcast and the School of Podcasting. And I can also highly recommend my friend Stephen's show, The Stephen Rowan Show, which is a really great listen. And Stephen, I've said it before, thank you again for helping me get this far. Stephen helped me to structure the first two shows and effectively produce the first two shows that I ever released. So his show's a great listen. Go check it out. And if you do want a productivity fix, then please check out Julian's show, Productivity Matters. He started his show more or less at the same time as mine, and he's already got a load of content over there. He looks quite a lot at technology, apps and things like that can be used for productivity, but he also goes into much broader areas as well. And there you go. Finally, we have reached the end of Season 3, and I have to say, I really didn't think I would get here. I had a few hairy moments in the last few months working and trying to research and record this show, and the 8 hours of content that I've actually come up with, I think, is a massive achievement. Passing the 50 show mark is also a great achievement for me, and I'm very pleased about that one. A lot of shows have what they call it pod fade, where the person who started the show starts to lose interest in it, and apparently most podcasts disappear after the first 7 episodes or less, so I'm very glad to have made it this far. Now, if you want to help the show out over the interim 3 months, please go telling people about the show. I know I go on about this a lot, but the point of the show, the whole point of the show, is to help people. So the more people that are listening, the more people that are learning, the more people that are able to take these techniques and bring them into their lives and de-stress themselves and become more creative as a result and move past the point of burnout and get past mental health issues or whatever, the better. This show is specifically designed and given away for free, all my time for free, all my equipment, everything that I put into this is done only to help fellow creative people, and as I've said many, many times before, really anyone on the planet. I know people that are listening to this show that are absolutely not in the film industry or in any other creative industry, but I do try and take topics which are accessible to all, and these topics, remember, largely, unless I'm coming up with them myself, have been taken from the business and lifestyle worlds, and they are applicable to many, many businesses. So if you know someone that might be interested in listening, please talk to them about it, get them to put it into their podcasting app. And if you want to really, really support the show as well, one thing that a lot of podcasters ask to do is that you screen grab when you're listening to the show and you put it out on social media, maybe with a link as well if you can be bothered doing that. That sort of thing would really help the show to get far more listeners. And that's going to be my drive over the next few months, is trying to get more new listeners on the show. But that's enough for now, I think. Thank you for giving me so much of your valuable time today. I hope it's been a useful episode for you as you move forward into 2020. And I wish for all of you that you have a fantastic year ahead. Hopefully some of the stuff that I've been talking about here will feed into your lives and make it just that little bit better. I will see you for a new season, although there will be a few in-between episodes, as I say, but I'll see you for a new season in late March. For now, though, take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next season on Film Pro Productivity. The music that you are listening to right now is Adventures by the very awesome Ehumitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode on the official website at filmproproductivity.com. You can follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Instagram if you want to. You don't have to, at fight_director, or follow the show's official pages on Twitter at FilmProProdPod or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and why don't you just get onto iTunes, get onto your app, and leave it an awesome review.